Hey guys, welcome back to the biggest agricultural platform known as Ndunawe Ngombe, which means headman of cattle in English. My name, of course, is Mitchell Mutumba Simata, aka the headman of cattle. So today I'd love to talk about an interesting topic that, something that I stumbled upon. I mean, something that I've been wanting to talk about, but I've never really had the right literature behind it to actually carry out a video on it, and that is embryo flashing in cattle, not in any other livestock, but in cattle. Embryo flashing is a breeding technique that entails collecting embryos from a donor cow and implanting them in surrogate cows, which then carries the embryos to term, meaning to when it gives birth. As with any type of breeding, donor and surrogate cows have to be in good condition to ensure a positive outcome. How embryo flushing works. The donor cows are superovulated and are artificially inseminated. A month later, the embryos are removed surgically and graded in a laboratory according to their quality. Embryos can be implanted into surrogate cows directly thereafter or frozen for future use. So you can either remove them from a cow, directly implant them in another cow, or you can keep them for future use. So that's one way you can go about it. Being able to freeze the embryos gives you access to genetics of your top cows after they have died. So embryo flashing, the advantage is that you still have access to top genetics from maybe one of your best cows. You know, maybe it was a cow that kept on breeding till past the age of 21, or it kept on, or you know, it was a champion cow. You know, once in a while, a unique cow, the one you only see once, the one you come across once in a lifetime. The surrogates receive hormonal treatment to ensure successful plantation of the embryos in the animal. The take percentage is 40 to 50% with embryo flushing, which is compared with about 70% with artificial insemination. The percentage is somewhat higher if you use fresh embryos instead of frozen ones. So if they're fresh, better. Frozen, maybe 40%. Fresh, probably 50%. Embryo flushing and transfers entails technical procedures which should be done by a vet. So vets would be best to do this, or somebody who's probably had training in doing embryo flushing. So you can either play around with it. I know there probably might be private companies that can offer to do this embryo flushing for you, for a fee of course. But if you can't get the vet, collect embryos. An example that was given, you can collect embryos from Sussex cows, and this can be implanted into Holstein cows. So you can collect them from a beef breed cattle and put it into a dairy breed cattle. So with embryo flushing, it gives you that opportunity to still breed top quality Sussex, Brahman, Simmental, Simbra, and probably insert that embryo into a Nguni cow or into a Holstein cow or into a dairy breed or a meat breed. It continues saying, Holstein, because embryo flushing has become quite a common procedure in the dairy business. And dairy farmers have such facilities in most cases. I think these are probably developed. I don't know about locally here. It also enables us to continue with our stud breeding program as usual. It enables a person, if you're doing stud or commercial, it enables you to continue doing that procedures, to continue with stud breeding without any interruption. Only 6 of the 17 surrogates, sometimes this is what can happen, only 6 of the 17 surrogates which took lead to birth of 3 bulls and 3 heifers. The calves were raised and received milk rations along with dairy calves. They received feed from 2 months of age to stimulate their ruminant. Learn from dairy farmers that they take percentages is influenced by climatic conditions. So the take percentages is the likability of the animal falling pregnant. Is this cow or this heifer gonna fall pregnant? So that's the take percentage. They say climatic conditions. So if it's probably too cold, it might not fall pregnant. If it's ideal weather, warmer, it probably fall pregnant. Because they say here, September when it starts getting warmer instead of April when it begins to get colder. So these people would always do AR flushing or implant, not AR flushing, but embryo flushing and start implanting embryos into cows when it's a bit warmer compared to when it's getting colder. The benefits of flushing. Embryo flushing enables farmers to produce more offsprings from their top cows. Like I mentioned, your cow's probably died in 2020 because of drought. You still have some of its embryos. You can still use it in breeding programs on other cows and still get very good genetics from that cow of yours, even though it's not there. That cow that can be flushed, the cows can be flushed every 2 months to produce offsprings. Produce offsprings per year via AI or natural breeding techniques. Flushing also presents new market opportunities. According to Mr. Peter, embryos can be sold locally or exported depending on this is based on South Africa, the South African foot and mouth disease status. Embryos are not only cheaper than live animals, but represent significant lower disease risks and eliminate the risk of animals being injured during transportation or to a new destination. The biggest disadvantage of embryo fleshing is it's expensive compared to artificial insemination. It's about 15 times the cost of artificial insemination. So it could be, it's something good because it means I still have access to top genetics from one of my top cows, but it could cost more than just doing artificial insemination. They're saying 15 times more expensive. But that's what the future is going into, guys, because as today on Clubhouse, I was engaged in a conversation where we were talking about what makes animals so expensive. So now, particularly at this time that we find ourselves, at this particular junction, when animals are becoming so expensive, sometimes you might not be able to afford 100,000 for the best Nguni cow available. So the best option you could have is probably buy embryos from people. But then again, of embryos, it's cheaper than buying a big live cow. But again, it's actually also again expensive. I didn't get the prices of embryo flushing in Namibia, but I know they do it. I have heard some of my stud breeding friends with the Brahman and also some Tao people who have done embryo flushing in cattle, which is a good thing because it means we store genetics from a frozen embryo of one of our best cows. So meaning we always have access to this genetics. It's a bad thing because not everybody will be able to afford it. It's a bit expensive. And then also the other thing of when you buy these embryos from a particular farmer, you need to pay attention to the condition. I think almost similar like AI, you pay attention to the condition. You do get a vet to do the procedure, probably have to operate and implant them in the cow. And then from there on, you have to wait and hope that the cow does take the embryo and actually does fall pregnant. I mean, the embryo and the cow do actually come together and the percentages are increased. So it's a long waiting period. But then again, it's beneficial because you always have access to your best cows, to your best cow or cows. If you lost them even in the 2020 or 2021 or 2009 drought, you'd still always have access to their genetic material. So those are my 2 cents on embryo flashing, guys. This is just a basic overview of embryo flashing. I've never done it. Have I ever had experience doing embryo flashing? No. I've heard people do it. But me, myself, I've not really attempted or I haven't done it. Probably something that I would love to probably go to a vet one day, one of my vet friends, and probably tag with them when they do this embryo flashing story so I could see and learn from them how this is done. So in future, one can and probably do it on his own farm or go for training. So I know there was a company that was offering artificial insemination, embryo flashing, and embryo flashing training in Namibia, but I do not know if they're still operating, this time of COVID. But it's something that farmers need to probably start getting accustomed to and probably start getting into, because like I mentioned, animals are becoming expensive, number one. Number two, probably the genetics you want are not available locally. You could just buy some embryos from a particular breed of that type of breed of cattle in another country and import it to your country. So those are my 2 cents on embryo flashing. I just love to ask you guys to do me 2 favors. If you like the content that I put out on this video, give me a huge thumbs up, and also hit that subscription button and turn on the bell notification to be notified of future uploads such as this one. With that said, guys, bye for now.